Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So let's get on to solving the multiple choice questions for prelims 2020 and question number 1. The term rules of origin is sometimes seen in news with reference to what? So we have 4 options here. Number 1, permitting foreign educational institutions to set up their campuses in the domestic country. Alright. Second is regulating investment through participatory notes to prevent round tripping of black money. C is granting licenses to foreign e-commerce firms to operate in the domestic country. Alright, and the last is developing trading norms to prevent dumping of foreign goods in the domestic market. So we have 4 options here and one of them is the right one. So do read this question once again and do try to come up with the right answer because it's really important. So either way, let's look at the answer now. So basically, rules of origin is related to trade. This is point number 1. If only one know this much, that rules of origin are related to the trade, then either way we are getting the answer. It's the D. That is developing the trading norms to prevent dumping of foreign goods in the domestic market. So it is not the point of shipping or the shipment that matters. What matters is the point of origin. So just to cite an example, let's say we are imposing tariffs onto the goods of China and China is in a way shipping its goods to Vietnam and through there it is bringing its good to India. Now, are they Vietnamese goods or are they Chinese goods? For this, we'll be looking at the rules of origin. So, although it's not needed and it's a really complicated and little complex topic to understand and it is not needed for our general study MCQ, मतलब अभी तो इतना भी enough है that rules of origin, they are related to trade. So basically we are to see that from which country goods are coming. Are they coming from the country onto which we have imposed the tariff, or are that country in a way making sure that goods are being routed off to some other nation and from there they are coming to India. So this would suffice. But just because UPSC is in the habit of making difficult question, I don't want to leave anything if at all we are discussing a topic. So just to cite an example, let's say we have imposed a tariff onto the goods of China and China is making sure that its goods are going to Vietnam first and then onwards to India. So now goods are either Vietnamese or Chinese, and how would we'll be determining this? Basically through rules of origin. So let's say government of India, hypothetically speaking, has stated that if value addition is to the tune of 50%, then and then only the goods would be counted as the Vietnamese good. So China exported goods to Vietnam and there it did a value addition of 25% and then onwards exported those goods to India. India would be counting them as the Chinese goods because our rules of origin, we've specified it to be that value addition had to be 50% and it's just 25%. So that's it. Now herein it was just an hypothetical example. As such, WTO, World Trade Organization, has no specified rules about the rules of origin. Each and every country is free to describe, to determine, to set its own rules of origin. So that's it. So if you really gotten bored with so much of explanation, then do let me know in the comment section. We'll really not be deviating too much. So answer here is D, that rules of origin are the rules to attribute a country of origin to a product in order to determine its economic nationality. Very obvious and self-explanatory. GATT, that is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which is basically World Trade Organization. It has no specific rules governing the determination of the country of origin of goods in international commerce. Each contracting party was free to determine its own origin rules, and that's it. So I'm sure this question is clear. So let's move on to the next one, which again is really simple. First one was slightly difficult, so second one is really simple. So SCOJTEX, what is it? It's something, and answer lies in its explanation. It is a joint exercise by the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It was based on what? The theme क्या था इस exercise का? So SCO stands for Shanghai Cooperation Organization, JT stands for Joint, and EX stands for Exercise. So it was onto earthquake search and rescue. Second is anti-terrorism and anti-terror financing. C is tackling climate change, and the last is eliminating hunger and poverty. So what is the right answer? Either we know it or we don't. There is not much of a guesswork involved. So let's see the answer now. So basically answer is A. It was onto the earthquake and search and rescue for the earthquake. So SCO joint exercise stands for Shanghai Cooperation Organization, joint exercise on urban earthquake search and rescue. What were the all nations that were party to it? 8. What were these? India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. So here in India and Pakistan are the recent members that have joined the SCO. China and Russia were either way there, but it's not. China stands here, and now where is Russia? Russia is here, now where is China? So I forgot to mention China here, but China is either way part of the SCO, and we know this thing. So 8 member means all the members. It's India, Russia, China and the Central Asian nations. Now here in Central Asian nation comprises of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Although Turkmenistan is to Central Asian nation, but Turkmenistan is not a part of SCO. So what are the members of SCO? It's Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Russia, China, India and Pakistan, and that's it. So we just kind of made an error in the question, but I'll try to be very, very professional from next video onwards. So let's get on to the next question, which is here. So basically this question is regarding the executive powers of governor. So consider the following statements regarding the executive powers of governor. What are these? Number 1. Governor acts as the chancellor of universities in the state. Alright. Second is he appoints the chief electoral officer. So governor appoints the chief electoral officer. This is what statement number 2 is. Third is he can remove a member of the State Public Service Commission. Alright. So which of these statements given above are correct? 1 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, or all of these? So again, pause a bit. It's from Lakshmikant from Polity, quite static, nothing difficult, and do try to come up with the right answer here. So what is the answer? So basically only statement number 1 is correct, that yes, governor by default acts as the chancellor of universities in the state, and he in fact appoints the vice chancellor of the universities. As such, governor is the chancellor of all the state universities we're talking about here. Plus, he cannot remove a member of the State Public Service Commission, because the members of the State Public Service Commission, they have gotten the same level of protection as the member of the Union Public Service Commission. And we know members of the UPSC can be removed only by the President of India, and that too not arbitrarily, but by following the procedure that has been written down in the Constitution of India. So statement number 3 becomes incorrect, and it's really important, so please memorize it. And statement number 2 was regarding the appointment of the Chief Electoral Officer. Now who is a Chief Electoral Officer? Basically, Chief Electoral Officer supervises the election work in a state or in a union territory, and as such the overall supervision lies with the Election Commission of India. So who appoints the Chief Electoral Officer? It is the Election Commissioner of India, that too in consultation with the state government, because it is the duty of the Election Commission of India to conduct elections, but it cannot go to all the states. This is a practical reality. So for every state there has to be one person in charge who is gonna supervise the conduct of elections in that very state, although under the overall supervision of the Chief Election Commission of India. So who is that person? State level in charge, it is the Chief Electoral Officer, and he gets appointed by the Chief Election Commissioner. That's it, and governor has nothing to do here. So we are done. Statement number 2 is also not correct, so we have gotten our answer. It's just the A, that is point 1. So let's look at the next question now. which is really simple. Consider the following statements regarding the cost push inflation. So it is the cost push inflation that is our keyword. So what are these statements? Number one, it is inflation triggered by supply side constraints. Alright, second is it can only occur when demand is relatively elastic. So which of the statements given above is are correct? One only, two only, both, or none? So very easy and simple question. Do try to come up with the right answer here as well, but let's see the answer now. So basically statement number one is correct, that yes, cost push inflation entails supply side constraints. What is cost? Cost of production. So supplier is to produce goods, and for that he or she needs to incur a cost in terms of buying raw material, paying wages to the labor. So if that cost goes up, then definitely supply side constraint would emerge. This is either way obvious. Second statement, it can only occur when demand is relatively elastic, is not correct. What do we mean by something being elastic? It means something is very flexible, very adjustable. So if demand is elastic, then cost push inflation cannot occur. Why and how it cannot occur? Let's say we can take the example of a salt. So no, salt is very inelastic. Let's take the example of a Maggi. So if suppose the price of Maggi goes up, then what would happen? Nothing would happen. People would switch to Yippee. So Yippee is there, so that's it. But if price of the salt goes up, then definitely inflation would be there, because people cannot do without salt. Salt has to be there in the meal. So if the demand for something is elastic, that is Maggi, the case of Maggi, then inflation cannot impact it. But if the demand of something is inelastic, that is salt, then definitely it would be having impact on inflation. So we got our answer. It's the A only, and we are done. Now herein there is just one more point, although it was not very important, but I thought of clarifying it once again. So basically, when we were talking about the institutions of eminence, so I stated that only the institutions, each public institution would be getting 1,000 crore. Now herein, please do emphasize upon this keyword, that is each public institution, because I was going through some of the test series, and therein they had just written that institution would be selected getting the 1,000 crore rupee, and then there is this tricky point that it is not the institution, it is just the public institutions and not the private ones. So abhi sab, like, it's so tricky, everything is so tricky. As per 2019 UPSC exam, the question are like this, so please memorize it. It's the only public institutions and not the private institution. So that's it. So we are done. And if you are watching these videos and if you are finding them helpful, then it's a humble request to please share them further. So we really are done, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.